The Middle Ages began in the 4th and 5th centuries with the encounter of two peoples and two societies, Germans and Romans. By this time, when the Germans invaded the Roman Empire and overran Gaul, Spain, England, Italy, Rome was nothing but a shabby stage set, and the two societies weren't all that different. Remember that since the 3rd and 4th centuries, a demographic and economic slump had been wearing down the network of roads and cities that the legions set up to protect the Pax Romana, diminishing both the comfort and the culture of the urban minority. And then, as the empire's urban civilization cracked, the pre-Roman, pre-colonial, rural substructure reappeared. Clans and gangs gathered around great landowners, around village leaders or tribal chiefs who provided the keystone of social relations. Local lords living in great villas on their rural estates became the real power in the countryside. And the countryside became, as it had been before the Roman conquest, the real base of the economy. In due course, for several centuries, it became the entire economy. This change was radical for the towns, which we usually associate with civilization, but it was less noticeable in the countryside, which had always lived by its own rhythm, no matter who lived there. The barbarian tribes carried cultural baggage of their own, of course. They were more warlike, less disciplined, more inclined to individual freedom, and more abstract in their art forms than the people of the Western Empire. These people ate bread, drank wine, used cash, and built with stone. But that didn't stop the barbarian leaders from taking over some of their villas, and some of their cities too, and from adopting the finery of a dying civilization. The economy was primitive, what you might call an agro-military economy. Production was at the subsistence level, and the only real source of profit was armed robbery and pillage. So the economic impetus provided by new inventions like the yoke, the heavy plow, and the crank resulted in better armed tribes, better able to build new states. The Saxons in England, Lombards in Italy, Franks in Gaul, and of these states, the most prestigious and the best known was the Carolingian Empire, which Charlemagne brought to its apex. But what was the Carolingian Empire really? A clan or village chieftainship writ large with universal pretensions. This remarkable object is Charlemagne's sarcophagus. In fact, throughout the Middle Ages, talented and astute war leaders would increase their power by war. Then they would die, leaving their whole house of cards to come crashing down because their heirs couldn't hold it up. Even Charlemagne's empire fell apart this way. Every spring throughout Europe, a king would call on his lords in their manors to follow him to war. That is, to join on plundering expeditions that went further and further afield. Most of the king's revenues didn't come from taxes. There were no tax collectors. Instead, they came from robbing the subjects of other kings or robbing lords outside his realm, and that's how the lords' revenues were raised too. The basic food and fuel of the kings and lords and everybody else on top, the knights, bishops, priests, came from the land, came from the peasants who worked the land. But that was just to live on. It didn't pay for weapons or luxuries or spices. Those had to be financed by the successful exercise of violence.